Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Grove. I am the GIS and Earth Sciences librarian here at FSU. Thank you so much for joining me today for getting started with like story maps, right? It's a really neat tool, so I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. Just out of curiosity, you can just raise your hand, thumbs up. Have any of you used story maps before? No. Okay, that's cool. It's great because this is actually a really great time to kind of like start. So this is perfectly meant for like introduction. So please just stay with me. Let me get my screen shared. Da, da, da. Where'd my share button go? Sorry. And three, one. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I had to make sure I was sharing the right thing, or else it would um you guys want to see a few things that I'm going to have pulled up. So to get us started today, I have a document right here that I can share out with you guys. I will send this out after the workshop. As long as you registered with an email, you're fine with me sending an email too. I can share this with you. But what I have here is just, it's like a little kind of how-to starter guide. So you're welcome to follow along. I should be going slow enough that you can do it with me. So the big thing you need to do right now is go to this website. Sorry, clicked on it when I didn't mean to. Go to this website. So it's cospp.maps.arcgis.com. What this will do is this will bring you to FSU's institutional version of the Esri online portal. So that will let you log in with your MyFSU ID. So I'll leave that up there for a minute. That way you can type it in. I'm also going to pop that into the chat. So let me copy the link and put that into Zoom real fast. Put that in the chat. That way you guys can grab it yourself. Right. Yes, that did go to perfect. Okay. Now go ahead and then you just log in with your MyFSU ID. You click the blue Florida State button and log in like normal. This should bring you to essentially a page that looks like this, right? So this is the Esri portal to basically all of FSU's ArcGIS online programs. What's really neat here is there's a lot of different tools, a lot of really neat things you can do. So if this gets you interested in story maps or like doing anything GIS related, this is where to go. So let's go ahead and we'll get started, right? If I come up here to like the little, I call it the four square icon and click there. And then we're just scrolling down to story maps right here, kind of the tealish looking one, and go ahead and click on it. Now, obviously, if this is your first time logging in, first time using it, yours is going to be blank in here. As you can see, I have a few in here that I use as examples. I am going to open up an example real quick that I do have to say is not finished. It's something fun that I'm working on. That way, when I finish it, it will be a really fun example. So to give you an idea of what StoryMaps is StoryMaps is a kind of almost a funner version of a blog, I guess you could say. Yeah, not quite Betty White. That is actually supposed to be Angela Lansbury, but yes, does have a very Betty White feel. That is Angela Lansbury. And we're going, so sorry. StoryMaps is a way of really allowing you to mix media, right? So we're going to be, you can mix in maps, videos, sound, pictures, graphs, right? A lot of different things. So this is a fun example that I've been putting together where I'm going to be mapping elements to the show Murder, She Wrote, right? So I'm calling it Murder, She Mapped. And it has kind of that first feeling of a blog right? A blog feel where you have words, you have descriptions that you go through. But then as things are going forward, what you can see is we're start mixing in elements. So here, start going in. So right in this section, I'm mapping out where is Cabot Cove. Cabot Cove is a fictional town. So this would be the process of working through how we would map potentially find this place. So using context clues from the episode. So we know it's in Maine. We know it's a coastal town. So it's in one of these kind of areas of Maine. And then using other context clues, right? So in one episode, there's a sailboat that submits a signal that gets to one of the Coast Guard stations. So like these were all the Coast Guard stations that were active during the year this episode aired. We know we do some research into how far a radio signal from a boat can reach, right? Kind of going into that. And then here would be where I'm mapping out, doing an estimate. So if that radio signal can go about 30 miles, this is a 30-mile radius that I was able to draw out on the map. So I narrowed it down to 2 of the stations, right, to go through. And then so we can assume that Cabot Cove was picked, yada, yada, yada. I'm going in a little too much detail of this. And then the next part I need to map out involves one of the roads that's mentioned. So I need to finish that. So that's mapping. And then, going in and adding, these are some other elements you can add in. So like a table. So here are how many murders, so the season versus how many murders happened in the Cabot Cove town, right? As we go through. And then what I did is I compared the murder rate of Cabot Cove to the national murder rate, right? So Cabot Cove's murder rate is much higher than what the national average was. And then my plan is to also map, some other elements to that TV show. So that was really just to try and give you an idea of some very simple things that are possible for StoryMaps. So I think that's kind of a fun thing to just kind of show you guys real quick to give you an idea of what's going on. But let's go ahead and actually work on playing with some of these elements that I hope you guys will enjoy. So to start out, all you got to do is click Create, and you're just going to click Create Story. This will launch this story builder. Give it a moment. And here is the bare bones of a story map. What I love about using story maps is it is very beginner user friendly. So if you are not sure about making maps or like really using them to help you present your research, don't be, because this will help walk you through some very easy ways of doing that. So what we start out with is real simple. First, we're going to give it a name, give it some information. So in our story title, we can just say, what is it we're doing? So I'm just going to call this, we'll do Florida, right? The name, be quirky, be fun. You can give it a short subtitle, a short introduction, just some kind of information to it. When I do this with classes, a lot of times I encourage the classes to put their course code in this section. This can be really helpful for like them finding each other's projects, for example, so they can see what their classmates are doing. So we'll just, I'm just going to give it a fake course code right now, just to kind of give you an idea. Now, something to pay attention to with StoryMaps is right here under my name, it says drafts. It also says drafts up here in this upper corner. This is important to pay attention to because this lets us know that we have not published the story. So I am the only person that would be able to see this story at any given time. Sorry, I'm checking. Oh, okay, sorry. Someone is saying that they can't log into StoryMaps. Are you logging in with your MyFSU information from the website I gave, the COSSPP website? And yes, okay. That is very odd. And really apologize. Um, God, this is one of the reasons why I'm not the biggest fan about doing my things virtually sometimes, is because it's without seeing your screen, it's really hard for me to troubleshoot. Um, so you have, excuse me, everyone, while we try this real quick, right? So you see this screen, correct? It's in Panama City. No, you should still be able to get it, even if you're on the Panama City, because you can log in with your, because this is an FSU institutional license, unless this is something weird. But then when you click here, StoryMaps isn't an option for you. Okay. If you don't mind watching and just kind of seeing how I do it, you don't see the option. Okay. If you don't mind watching and seeing what we do, that way you get an idea, then what we can do is you and I can meet up after this and we can try and troubleshoot it together and I can try and figure out why you can't see it. Are you all right with that? I said, okay, wonderful. All right, so back to StoryMaps. Thank you for understanding. I really appreciate that. All right, so StoryMaps, we gave our title. Oh, I was talking about drafts. So drafts, only I can see it. It doesn't matter if I give someone like this URL link right up here or anything like that. No one's going to be able to see it. So it's important to make sure you pay attention to what status this says. Additionally, StoryMaps does auto save. So as you can see, it says saved. I check it periodically, right? Just to make sure it says save, because if it gets stuck on a saving, you don't want to put in a ton of information and then have it not actually save. Luckily, this doesn't happen often, but I don't want you to be the case where it does happen to you. So periodically, just make sure it's telling you that it is saved, that your information is saved. So let's go ahead and let's have some fun. Let's add in some information. So one of the first things that's a big feature in StoryMaps is adding a cover image or video. A cover image or video has to be uploaded. So I'm going to just upload a picture that I downloaded quickly. To in my downloads. Because you're in home. What are you doing to me? Where'd you go? I apologize real quick. Where are you? Downloads. You say you're in downloads. Apologies. Okay, one second. I'm sorry. I downloaded these onto this computer and now for some reason it doesn't want to share. So let me extract all, extract real quick. Let's try this again. There it is. Okay. My apologies. I didn't extract. So we'll go ahead, throw in picture manatees because I labeled it Florida, right? So download any image that you like and you just click add. Now this layout is the default layout of StoryMaps. So it's nice, but what it does is it kind of cuts off this picture. So the thing that I really like to tell anyone who's getting started with StoryMaps is to pay attention to what your images are doing and really think about the story you're trying to tell. Because the whole point of this is to use multimedia to enhance your story, right? To enhance the information you're trying to share with someone. So we can change that. And we can do that a couple of different ways. One is if I click the gear icon on the photo, and I can change the focal point of this image. So I can move it like here, for example, and click save and see how it moved the image there, right? Another way is I can do it into the design. I'm not stuck with my design being just like this. If I click design up here, we have a couple of different options for our image. So I can do that, right? I can have it kind of the side in different elements. So I can really play with it and be like, okay, how do I think it displays my image best that lets me tell my story? So say I like it like that one, right? Again, if I wanted to change it, I could change my focal point to be a little bit lower. So that focal point is that center point where it's trying to center around that area. So there we go. Now we can see the manatees a little bit better. So that's something to just think about, is think about the design, because there are different layout options in here. Additionally, under the design option, we have some optional story sections. You can have credits. I always encourage people to turn the navigation on as soon as you start. What this will do is, just as the little information thing has, it creates like a link running header so people can jump to different sections of your story. Not only does it help a reader, it helps you, because as long as you are putting in headings, you won't have to scroll through everything you put in, like when you're ready to, jump to like the bottom parts of your story. So it also helps you just with editing purposes. Additionally, there are like some theme options, so you can like change the color of it. You can browse more. I'm not going to go into the browse, but as you can see, like kind of changing it can be neat. So this is quick, simple design changes, right? That affect the overall aesthetic of the entire story. You can always change them later. It's neat. It works great. Now, if you want to change, for example, some information here, I can click on the little palette appearance. So I can change the positioning, right, of my words. So horizontal, vertical, the size. I can make it less transparent, right, or like completely transparent. So again, just kind of thinking about that. Those are just some quick design aesthetic stuff that I like to point out. So let's go ahead and actually start adding in elements to this. I'm just going to quickly try and double check to make sure there aren't any chats I missed. Okay, it doesn't look like it. So let's go ahead, and first things first is going to be let's add a couple of headers, right? That way we kind of have our story portioned out. So everything else we do is basically done through this blue plus button, right? So this is how we're going to add in all of the other elements into our story map. So if we click on text, I can just start typing like intro, right? If I hit enter, it opens up another text box so I can just type. In this intro though, I want it to be a header so it appears up here. So what I can do is I click on it, or I double click on it, apologies. And then where it says paragraph, I change that to heading 1. Now, heading 1 makes it appear in this navigation bar. Heading 2 and below will not appear in the navigation bar. So just keep that in mind. Anytime you want it to be like a big section, it has to be heading 1, right? So then we can go ahead and add in, I'm going to just add in like a second section. Let's make it, we'll just call it second, and heading 1. And there we go. Now we have our two navigation headers. And as you can see, even though I scroll, that navigation bar stays there. So you can jump up and down the story very easily. What else I like is you can copy and paste directly into your story map. So if, for example, I open up, did I not download that? I didn't, but okay. This is a random thing that was on the computer. So I'm just going to copy it real quick. Nice. Text. V, right? I can copy and paste. This works with PDFs, Word, Google Docs, plain text, anything. So if you don't want to type out your entire story in StoryMaps, perhaps you want to use sections from an article you've already worked on, right? And you want to like do a quote, or you want to type it all out in a shared document in Google Docs, right? Or OneDrive. You can do that, and then you can copy and paste the sections right in. It makes it easier, I think, you know, especially like when it comes to spelling or putting in like specialized characters. So copy and paste right in. There's one caveat that I like to point out, and this is that occasionally, very occasionally, if you copy and paste from Google Docs, you'll see your words in there, and then you'll scroll to a different part of your story, and then you scroll back. It might disappear. This is some weird back-end coding issue. If that happens to you, what I suggest is export your Google Doc into a Word, PDF, plain text, anything, and then copy and paste. Now, it hasn't done this to us in like a semester or two, but until it's been like a long time since I've seen this happen to like a student, I want you to be aware of that caveat. So adding text, easy, right? We can work with that. Let's go ahead and play with some of the fun elements in here. So one of the ones, I mean, how can I do GIS and story maps if I actually don't talk about a map? So we're gonna go ahead and let's create an express map. So an express map is like a static map in that it's just gonna be a map view. So we click on map and then click create express map. This will pop up. It just walks you through some basic tutorial, right? Some things, let you know different things you can do. So here we have our map. I'm going to quickly change. I'm going to show you how to do this. Normally I show you second, but I don't like this base map. This base map, I don't like it. I don't like how it appears. So what you're going to do is you're going to click the options icon, make sure base map is selected, and then click on select base map. And then you can choose from any of these designs. You can explore more. We'll use, you know, kind of classic-y looking map for now. Oh, I didn't mean to click save. I just meant to click yes. So started the base map. To edit, click the pencil icon so I can come back and draw. So what's neat about the static map is it's very easy to use. So you can like throw a point on, right? You can put numbers on. I see this sometimes if you want to show kind of like maybe a journey of something. You can do that. We can draw lines, right? So like to connect the dots, you can do that. You can draw a shape. Perhaps you want to show like the radius of a volcano ash fallout, right? You can kind of draw that radius. Now, all of these elements that I was just clicking or that I added, they all have a feature over here. So let me click that. So you can see they're all entitled because I was just clicking and adding them to my map. What I can do is I can click on one, click on it, sorry, and then I can add an image or a video. So I'm going to add the manatee real quick. Add. So as a little image, I can give it a name. I think that's a number, so we'll say stop one, give it a description. And then I click save, okay? So that labeled stop one. So now when someone hovers over stop one, this information will appear, right? So whenever you add things to the express map, the static map, always label this information. At minimum, give it a name. Tell people why this is being drawn on the map. At the minimum, you don't always have to have a picture. Have something there to tell people why it is sitting there, okay? Now, so that's just like doing some quick drawing plop, right? What we can also do is we can, you know, edit locations more specifically. So we can do that a couple different ways. One is I can zoom in, right? So I could zoom in if I know where I'm going, or I can also search. So their search function is great in that I can search addresses. It knows most like kind of major names of things. Sometimes it knows major monuments like the Eiffel Tower, for example, or something like that. So if I type in Florida State University, right, a couple of addresses for FSU come up. So we'll go ahead and use the West Call Street one. And then I click add to map. Right there, it entered in. Okay, it gave me the address, it gave me the name. I can edit it. So university, right? I can add all that. I can change the description. I can do an address. So if I do 110 West Woodward Avenue, Tallahassee, excuse me. Let's be west. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I'm just using that one for an example right now. It brought us to the globe. I wanted west, which is where Dirac Library is. It's silly, I know. Why am I doing it like this? Here we go. It's moving the wrong way on my map. Here's Woodward, EOAS, scroll in. Fairway, Dirac, there it is. So there's the Dirac library, can drop my pin, can put my information in there. Great. So Dirac, click save, or else it doesn't save that information. So that's really neat and very helpful. But sometimes you don't have an address. Perhaps you have coordinates. Maybe you're showing some field work that's being done, something like that. We can also do things by coordinates. So if I come here, and I'm going to use Google Maps as an example, maps, and let's search Magic Kingdom. Right, so Magic Kingdom, Disney World, and I click on my I click on that, right click on the icon, and I'm going to copy and paste the coordinates. I come back to StoryMaps and I can search those coordinates right here. So if I press enter, now I can assume that's right, like that, but always double check your coordinates, because if I scroll out, it put me in Antarctica. For some reason, again, I'm not sure why, we have to flip the first and second numbers when we copy and paste from Google Maps. There we go. Now we have Magic Kingdom and we add it. So that's just something, if you copy and paste coordinates from a document, double check it. Make sure it appears where it is. If not, try flipping the coordinates around, and that usually will get you to the right spots. So that's kind of some basics of playing with the map, right? Now I click save. So it saved my map, and I want to draw your location. So when we were in this map, we were zoomed way out and we had a bunch of images or like circles and stops. And then, you know, I had stuff on the FSU campus. But when I click save and I came out to this view, it went to that last spot. It's just showing our Magic Kingdom. Now, if I zoomed out of this map, I would start to see all of those other elements we did. So something to keep in mind is when you're editing your map, whatever the last zoom level you were at is going to be the default view that someone coming to your story will see for the first time. So if you want to make sure that like you can zoom way in to get really precise, but then you might want to zoom it out so they can orient themselves better, right? Or vice versa. You can have it zoomed out with the pins and then they can zoom themselves in. So just something to kind of keep in mind is being aware of the last zoom level you saved your map at is going to be the zoom level that first appears here on your map. So that is our static map, just a quick express map. Excuse me while I take a sip of water. I'm going to pause for just 1 second and check the chat. Are there any questions about using the map feature. Not seeing any at the moment. Oh, yay. Okay, I'm so glad you figured it out. I'm so sorry that I at the time couldn't figure out how to help you right away. Okay, so static map. Let's go ahead and look at some of the other map type options, right, that we can do in this. So there's map to create that one. We could also do a map tour, right? So that one is, let me exit out and show you. It's at the very bottom of the list under what's called immersive. So a map tour, we are going to start from scratch. A map tour has two types, and each type has two options. So there's a guided tour, in which case you set the order that the stops are done in. So this is really helpful. Like if you're following, an example I use a lot is like the journey of a character through a book, right? They go to certain places in a certain order. You would set that. An explore option means that the viewer can choose in what order they want to go to different elements of it. So like someone on a safari, it doesn't matter that if they look at the giraffe first versus the elephants, right? You can choose. And then you have the options of like a media focused or map focused, list, grid. Again, I'm saying it again. Think about the elements you're trying to display and how is it going to best tell your story. I'm a personal fan of the map focused guided tour. So that's the one I'm going to demo. Click save. Now what we have here is our map, is our tour, right? Let's go ahead and I'm actually going to add a header in real quick. Tour. That way, as we're scrolling later, we can come to it. Heading one. There's tour. Okay. So what we need to do is we essentially, every stop, we create kind of like this slide card, however you want to refer to it, down here. So for stop one, as you can see, it's labeled with a 1 up here. And go away pop-up box. And you can add images or videos. Now, something that I didn't show you yet is you do have the ability to link images and videos. So we'll go ahead and we're just going to go to, I'm using the Met Museum because I recently taught a class where they were getting images from the Met. So that's at the top of my mind. Blue vase. And here's a vase. So say I want to use this image, right click, copy image address, come back to, StoryMaps. Oops, wrong one. Stop doing that. And I can paste my link in here and click add. And there we go. It added that image in for us. Linking your images, this is great if you're using anything from other people's websites. It is also great because it saves room on the FSU's like storage on Esri. So I encourage you to link when possible, but there are times where you can't link. It forces you to upload the image. I'm just showing you different ways of doing it, essentially. So we can add an image. You can add a title, right? So I'm just going to call this stop one. Add our description, type something in. Now, we have the card, but we don't have it associated with anything on this larger map. So what we do is we go to add location. And just like what we were doing with the static map, is I can zoom in, right, to choose where I want it to go, or I can search. Probably going to encourage you to search. So we'll do Florida State University again. And add it to the map, right? Now, anytime I am in a tour, I usually encourage that once you place the pin for your stop, I usually encourage you to click use current zoom level on the zoom level and then zoom it to whatever zoom level you want it to be. Like, do you want it to be like individual buildings, right? Or do you want it to be like a big city, right? Again, thinking about what's best going to tell your story for that specific spot. And I say this because then as people zoom to the, or go to the different stops, it will zoom to the level you want it. If you use map tour settings, it creates kind of an automatic setting level that sometimes tries to average it out, and it doesn't always look as clean, and it might kind of like, you might just not be happy with it. So that's why I encourage you to click use current zoom level and then click save. So there's stop one. So then when I'm ready to add my second stop, I just click new slide. And now I can add my second stop. So we'll add another image and we'll just grab a different vase, right? How about this one? This one's pretty. Add, right? So it's real simple. Now, what you can also do is each stop, you can add up to 5 images or videos. So you can have, like, say you're showing a building, right? As on one of your stops, and you have multiple photos showing different angles of that building, right? Or an outcropping of some geological feature with, we have different photos. You can put them all in one stop in that one card. So I'm just going to add vanity photo real quick. So this way you can, the viewer can look at the multiple images with one stop. And now let's go ahead and add the location. And you know what, this time let's just do Idaho. I'm from Idaho. So we'll go ahead and make it Idaho. Add to map, use my current zoom level, right? That way it zooms it back out. And I'm going to click save. Okay. So I have 2 locations now, and watch as I scroll from location 2 to location 1, it automatically moved the map to fit. Okay. If I again want to change the base map, here it's the pencil edit icon. Select my base map and I can change it to whatever option I like. And there we go. So there is our quick and dirty map tour. Stop for 1 second to check. Are any questions about a map tour? I know I'm showing this kind of quick. Okay. Awesome. So map tour, it's fun. It's a great way of showing off some different elements. What else you can do? If we click here, you can add in another element I like to show is this thing called a sidecar. As now a sidecar was what I was showing when that first story I showed when we got into the room with the Murder She Mapped one, and where I had like an image that was static and I scrolled and the text next to it moved. That's done with this sidecar. And so as you can see, a sidecar has 3 view options: docked, floating, or slideshow. Personally, to me, slideshow isn't as great because you have to click through it, whereas the docked and the floating, you can just scroll. The viewer can just scroll and look at it. So again, personal preference, what you like. So there is the sidecar. So here I can add in pretty much almost every element that we have available when we're like in the main part of it. So like text, right? I can add a small map. You can add an infographic, a table, anything you want in here. So here, I'm just going to quickly type in a bunch of text with like some spaces in between as an example. Okay, so just to give you an idea when I show it. Now over here in this, I call it like the canvas side, is where we can add our elements. So you can add images, right? You can add another map in. So a map like what we were talking, like the express map that we created earlier. You can add an infographic. So that infographic, you know, I can, for example, choose that, save, and then, you just change your number, 100, whatever that's, respondents, and then you can change your icon. These are you're only allowed to use these icons in here, but you can change your icon. And then just click save. So like you can have an infographic on there. And then when you're ready for this this image to change, but you still want it to be a sidecar, you just click the plus icon here, and then it gives you essentially like a new card, a new slide down here that you can work with. So we'll go ahead and add an image. Now, something that I've been doing is I've been adding images. Now, I wouldn't be a librarian if I didn't remind you, you need to be citing any images, especially if they are not your own. And you can do that in a very simple way. One is by clicking the gear icon where we change the focal points. And if we just scroll down under here, attribution. So I can add in my citation, just like that. So you can type it out however it's supposed to be. It can only be 125 characters. But what's really also nice is I can highlight this and then I can link it back to the web page. So even if you link an image in, I encourage you to cite it, to do the attribution, and then put that link here, because I know this isn't the same one, the same image to this one, but I just want to show you. So I click apply, save. Now this little eye icon pops up with citation, and then it hyperlinks. So that way I can go back to the page. So they're able to easily go and see where you pulled an image from. So if perhaps you're using a graph from a paper you published, you can, have that little citation right on the image. That way it brings them straight to the larger paper, for example. Type of thing. So that is working with a sidecar, right? A sidecar can be really effective because, especially if you have like an image that you're talking about. I'm going to use another example from a class I was teaching recently. That they're studying like ancient artifacts, and so a lot of times they have to spend time talking about like a vase. And so they can have the vase on the screen the entire time, but then have their text here. That way the viewer can keep the vase in view as they talk about the different elements of it. And so that way the viewer's not scrolling back and forth all the time. So that can be really impactful in a variety of ways. And as I mentioned, like you can add a map, you can add a chart, you can just make it a color if you want kind of like a pause in between something. I'm going to take a pause so you guys can kind of see what these elements would look like in the larger, I'm teaching a workshop right now. Sorry, someone just tried to come into this. That way you can see what this looks like as someone who may be viewing it. So if I click on preview, this will pop up each time. It's just letting you know you can't use the undo button. You would have to delete or fix whatever it is you can't undo. So here is our preview of our story. So Florida, I can jump to our section. So here's our second where we have our static map. I can jump to the tour. And as I scroll through the tour, so let me scroll up the tour. There's my stop, our second stop with our images, right? And then here is our sidecar. So here's all the text that I was just kind of randomly typing in as I scroll. And then it goes to our new pictures, right, that we were adding in. To exit the preview, it's this little X down here in the bottom of the screen, the bottom right hand of the screen. So quick and dirty, some elements. I do want to show you another tool that's available to StoryMaps that can be highly effective when used appropriately. And that right there, it's called the swipe. So we'll go ahead and add a swipe. So what this does is it allows you to compare two things side by side. So to give you the best effect, let me add in two images real quick. So image, and these as you can see, you can't link here. You have to upload these images for a swipe. So I'm going to use that image. And then on this side, I want this image. Okay. So what this is two Google Earth images taken of FSU's campus. On the left-hand side is 2003. On the right-hand side is 2023. So as I move this, I can expand it out so I can see what it looked like just about 3 years ago. As I move this way, I can see what it looks like 23 years ago. So what I love to point out, especially like to undergrad students, is as I swipe further on the 2003, there's a swimming pool right here. And then I swipe this way, and now it's a building. That's where HCB is. So this is a really good way of showing how maybe time has changed. You can also do a swipe with two maps. Now, you don't want two maps of two completely different locations or two images of like two completely different things because it loses its effect. A swipe is really best when you have the same type of thing, but it has minor differences so they can compare and contrast easier. So if you were using it in a map, for example, and you have the map of, let's say, Florida, like the ocean waters around Florida, okay? And one map maps out the boundaries of sea turtle type A. And then the second map maps out the boundaries of sea turtle type B. Okay. That would be an effective use because they could see, oh, do they overlap? Are they in the same areas? Are they, in drastically different areas, but you're still looking at the waters around Florida? You could do it at like before and after images. I believe I have it downloaded, so let me show real quick. Maybe a before and after image example. Yeah, I do. Okay. So let me add that in. So this would be another example is something like this, where it's a before and after image of a painting that's been restored. So as you can see, this one doesn't line up perfectly like the Google Earth image, but you can see like the color changes, right? Before and after this picture was restored. So, right, like see how much the feather detail and the detail in the braids change before it was restored and after it was restored. So again, a swipe can be extremely effective, but you want to be using it appropriately. So keep that in mind. Some other neat elements that I just like pointing out is you can add in videos. I've seen people, link in a YouTube video, right? That can be really neat. You can add in an audio file. I wish you guys were in here because I don't think it would work, but like here I have this short wave file that I can load in, and it's just rain sounds. And so this like 8 seconds of rain. It's not even playing in here. So 8 seconds of rain. And then if I click my gear icon, I could loop it. So like you could put this at the very beginning of your story and it could be like a music or a song or something, right? And it would just play the entire time the viewer's looking at your story if you're trying to set a mood. They do have the ability to pause it. So don't worry, but like that could be something fun, right? A way of like setting the tone. You also have the option of doing image galleries. So image gallery. So when you do an image gallery for the first time, you do have to upload the first picture. So we'll upload Greek pottery. And then I can come in and click the plus icon and I can add in, right? I don't know why I'm clicking multiple times when you can only add in one at a time. So I can reuse images for my story. I can add in new images. Let me just add in a few images real quick to kind of show you how you can change the layout real fast. You need multiple images in order to show that. Okay, so here, right? So we have like a little image gallery that you can do. Right up here is where I can kind of change how that's viewed. So like I can make it square or a jigsaw or like a film strip, right? Maybe you want it in a film strip where they click, oh, side, oops. click side to side. Or a jigsaw, you can do it something like that. So you can have some fun with it. Image gallery is again really impactful. If you want to edit a single image in an image gallery, do not click the options icon at the top. You want to click either the option or the pencil icon at the bottom of the image you want to change. The option icon will allow you to change that focal point and add in that attribution and or caption. The pencil icon will let you do some basic editing of it. So you can do some kind of basic cropping, and a little like kind of doing some rotations or like flipping it, right? Flipping the image. Very basic editing. You can't do like Photoshop level editing here. That's doing some images. And now the important part, publishing and sharing your story. So in order to share your story, what you need to do is you need to click publish, and it should open up to share this window. Now, your level of sharing is important. A private means only you can view it. It doesn't matter if you give me that link, I still can't see it. At organization level means anyone who logs in with their FSU ID into the StoryMaps system will be able to see it. Okay, so this is organization level. A lot of students will keep it this way because they're only sharing it with their teacher, right? And they don't want it to be like found on the internet. Public, this is how you would share it, perhaps if you're working with a community group who doesn't have access to FSU system, or you want to share it with your grandpa, right? Grandpa, look at this thing, this cool thing I did. Then it would be give someone the link. They don't have to log in. They just are taken straight to the story. So you would set your sharing level to the appropriate elements, and then you click publish. It checks for any issues. So this checking for like issues with an image or a map. If it finds something, it tells you like it can't publish it, and you need to go and find that problem. If you discover it and you can't figure out the problem, come to me. I'm more than happy to help sit down and see what we can figure out the issue is. A lot of times you can figure it out by going into the preview and seeing what's not showing up. Now it's published. All I have to do is I can copy this link, or I can share this QR code. And that link is stable. That link stays as is, right? So if I publish my story and I turn it into an assignment, I put the link on my website, right? I share it out in whatever way I want to, but I realize, oh, I forgot to add something. What I can do is I can come back and I can edit the story. So notice up here, remember earlier when I was talking about draft, it now says published right here. I can come in, I'm just going to add in some text real fast. That's quick and easy change. Now it says unpublished changes. So that published version is still out there, right, with the link I had. And that would be what people see. They're not going to see any of the changes I made. So you have to republish the story again. So I'll publish it again. That link stayed the same. The link did not change. But now that those edits will be viewed from that link. So that's the thing that I a lot of times warn students about is, making sure they republish after they've published it the first time if they make any edits. All right. Are there any, that is a real quick and dirty kind of explanation of StoryMaps. It is a really neat tool. You can do a lot of fun stuff with it. I've seen people use it for resumes. I've seen people use it for like, instead of writing a traditional paper and like slideshow, some professors have let students use this instead. I've worked with multiple classes where this is now replacing the term paper. Instead, the teacher wants to see them incorporate multimedia, and it a lot of times actually does help because the students aren't telling something. They're forced to be more interactive with the information they are sharing. Are there any questions